Hi, everyone. It's Don. We have the week 12 reflection questions here for principles of college teaching. And not only am I going to answer your questions, but this is also kind of something you can do when you're teaching your class online. We're doing online teaching over these next couple of weeks. So this is something where you can do a video reply to your students' reflections, even if you don't have real-time contact with your students, if you're teaching online in an asynchronous course. So as always, y'all have some wonderful questions, and I hope these answers are going to be helpful to you. So first couple questions had to do with student accountability and grading practices. First question was, how should I handle students who put in minimal effort throughout the semester, but by the end, they have parents or department contacts reach out to me asking for their grade to be increased. The person said it happened twice to them, even after warning all students. First thing, and we'll talk about this toward the end of the semester, is people cannot be asking you about other people's grades in your class. So we are kind of prevented by federal law from discussing grades from other people in our class about our students. So you can't talk to those parents about your students' grades. So one of the things, if a parent reaches out, I'll say, thank you so much for your message. If your student has a question about their grade, I encourage them to contact me and take that parent out of the equation. Same kind of things, maybe with a department contact. The other thing I'll often do when the student then reaches out is say, I'm sorry, the point structure of my class is very clear and the grade is my class's final. So kind of end that conversation. If they send me a second email, I copy and paste the first email. So again, the point structure of my class is clear, the grades of my class are final. They send me a third email, again, copy and paste that first message so they understand that it's not a negotiation. That's really what's going to happen in my class. Second question. How can instructors balance the benefits of offering extra credit to improve learning outcomes without inadvertently encouraging students to rely on extra credit to make up for poor performance on regular assignments? This is excellent. If we use extra credit all the time, then we risk doing that. If we're going to have lots of extra credit opportunities for a large percentage of the points, then yeah, we're potentially reinforcing our students to only do the extra credit and then not the real things. This is why I typically cap the extra credit in my class, maybe at 3%, maybe at 5% at the absolute maximum, so that it's not going to be enough that students can get a good grade in my class without having done the real things, not just the extra things. The next question, what kind of additions to your classes have students suggested in their extra credit assignments? They've suggested alternative ways to do assignments. They've suggested alternative ways for me to think about some of the grading that I do in my class, some of the point structure in my class. But probably the most important additions have been with examples, with memes that I might share, with short videos that I would include, with examples that I cover in class, with stories that I can tell. So it's really going to be often expanding on the content by showing me how they've applied it relevantly to their personal lives, not necessarily a huge structural element that I get from some of those extra credit reflections. That's a great question. Next couple questions have to do with classroom management and safety. Someone said, in the event of a physical fight between students during class, which should never happen, what immediate actions do you take to ensure the safety of all students and restore order in the classroom? Number one, students are fighting in my class. Like I said before, anytime you get a big thing going on, clear your class, call 911. I don't want to put myself at physical risk. I don't want to put my students at physical risk. Clear that class, call 911. If you're worried it's going to kind of escalate, and you can't leave that situation, maybe have one of the last students go out and get your department head or another faculty member to come in and at least observe that kind of situation. But I do not recommend physically intervening between your two students for their safety and for yours. The next question is, what can we do if a conversation has already spiraled out of control, with students becoming disrespectful and the situation feeling chaotic? How can we take control and calm things down? I think at some point, if things are really spiraled out of control, you've just got to press the pause button. So, all right, everyone, on me for a second. I need everyone to just calm down for a second. We're all going to breathe for 30 seconds. Maybe lead a deep breathing activity, those kind of things, and then restart. Say, okay, what I'm hearing is we have some real strong opinions about this. We have some real strong opinions about this. Let's bring that back down a little bit and get at some of the reasons that we're having for the opinions that we're having. So literally take control, pause the class, mindfulness activity or something, get everybody kind of back down, and then re-engage from a safer spot. Is it the instructor's responsibility to facilitate or interrupt controversial conversations students have before class starts? I think if things are kind of becoming uncomfortable, students are getting kind of, emotionally invested in that, saying, "Hey, what are we all talking about? Let's keep that out of here. Like let's be happy today. I have a real cool class planned." Something like that, maybe a little bit lighthearted to get them involved might be okay. Especially if bullying is going on, you can't let that happen. But if students are just disagreeing and starting to get out of control, maybe kind of changing that topic and reminding them, "Hey, we're gonna have a great class today. What'd y'all do for the weekend? What's your favorite food that you eat during the Halloween season?" Something along those lines to try to get that back to good. Um, Anytime we're kind of dealing with stress and anxiety, we deal with the emotion first and then the problem. So get everybody calm back down and then maybe explore the problem after that. Someone else asked, can I share examples of exams by you instructions as well? Yes, thank you for pointing that back out again. I'll put that in a class announcement so you can see what I do there. Again, exams by year when I have my students write and take their own exams. This is something I provided some examples to last time. I'll provide you the instructions for how my students got there in a little bit. Someone asked about assessment and feedback. At the end of the semester, how do academic departments assess classes other than through TVALs? So first of all, I remind you, TVALs are kind of student perception data. So asking our students how that class experience went. TVALs is one of the acceptable ways to do that, but there are other ways to get that student data as well. Every class, unless they're really, really small, is obligated to do that in some form. The other things besides student perception data that are often used by departments to evaluate the person's course is they look at their syllabus, they look at the course structure, they look at the assessment plan, they look at demonstrations of students' work, they look at the resources the students are exposed to, they evaluate the SLOs, the student learning outcomes for the relevance of the class. They might look at innovative practices that the instructor is talking about that they do in their class. So there's this whole constellation of things that people can and should use to evaluate people for their excellence in teaching. There are a couple questions on supporting student mental health and well-being. One said, how do I gently tell a student that might benefit from therapy or mental health help? The person went on to say, I know the students know that they are testing anxiety, they have testing anxiety, but the instructor said they don't feel equipped to help ease their fears and reassure them. I know the student is very dedicated and smart. However, they're failing the class because they're really struggling with the assignments. The student is continually coming to my student hours to study with me and ask questions. How do I handle this? How do I foster a supportive environment in which they would be able to get some help? So what I do in cases like this is I provide them to the website, give them the link to our student support and accountability office. Now, the reason I send them there is that's one-stop shopping for all the campus resources that would help students regardless of what it is they're experiencing. So the mental health resources are going to be on there. The student access resources are going to be on there. The crisis resources are going to be on there. The health resources are going to be on there. So I would send them there. And I might also let them know that, hey, just to make sure that you get those resources or the help that you might need, I'm going to put in a student concern for you just so they can connect you more directly with the things that you want. And then what happens is the student support and accountability office will reach out to the student even proactively to follow up with them. Now, the first part of this question is, how do I tell a student they need therapy? And that's not how it was phrased, but that could be how it potentially. Don't ever just tell a student, hey, I think you need therapy. I think what you say is, hey, it sounds like you're struggling. There might be some resources on campus that can help. And those resources might include therapy, but I think there's still a stigma around therapy, and some students might be offended if you were to say something like that to them. So I'd focus on, hey, you're struggling. I don't think you should have to struggle this much. There's some resources that might be able to help. Let's try to get you some access to those resources. Someone also asked, what are some simple strategies to help students feel more comfortable during difficult dialogues? One of the things I try to do is I try to make these as academic and intellectual as possible. One of the things that I teach my Gen Psych students is the more we feel, the less we think. So the more those emotions get hot, the more that we get heated and kind of emotionally invested, the harder it is for us to listen and actually have rational, logical thoughts. So one of the things I'll try to do is to keep it more at the intellectual and academic level and a little bit away from those emotions. So that's something I might do. And I might let them know, hey, our goal today is to think this through. Our goal today is not to win. Our goal today is to just think and understand. So we're going to keep it at that thought level. We're going to try to keep our emotions as out of it as we can. All right, turn my page to the next. Question on active learning and online teaching. Someone asked, I often go to hands-on active learning strategies in which students can learn by doing. However, it's not always possible in teaching a class online. What are some good active learning strategies for online learning? One of the things I'll often have students do when they're watching me kind of do an asynchronous lecture like this one is I might hit pause. So say, hey, I'm going to give you some instructions. You're going to hit pause for 30 seconds. Then you're going to re-engage the video and you're going to kind of show us what you've kind of thought about. Maybe they'll have a reflection assignment that's associated with that video that they can kind of, put up on Canvas for me to evaluate to see that they're actually doing it. But that's something that I would try to do is kind of this pause method. Now, I know for sure some of my students aren't going to pause the video, but if I have that reflection associated with it, they're going to have to do it later. So that's something I try to keep in my back pocket to use. All right, a couple more questions on navigating difficult topics. One of these, when dealing with difficult topics, it was said during class that who we are plays a role in how we approach the topics. Do you think that finding common ground with students is a priority, or could these topics be approached with an attitude of dissociating in an effort to remain neutral and keep emotions at bay? So this is kind of consistent with that point I was making a little bit ago about maybe intellectualizing or making this a little bit more academic. You can absolutely do that. I think the common ground, though, we should find with students is to help them realize that we do have rapport, we do have community, and I am supporting them in their learning. So I want to establish that common ground before I move to a difficult topic, even if I'm going to try to keep the emotions a little bit lower and keep that thought a little bit higher. Someone then said, I'm a person who normally very straightforward when I teach, and sometimes I feel I am cold when discussing controversial topics in my class by discussing the science behind certain practices. Person says they do this because some of these topics make me emotional due to my own views and opinions. How can I show more authenticity while conveying the importance of this information and bring my perspectives about these practices to the conversation without overstepping the line between personal and professional opinion? I think if we want to be authentic, we go professional. And then we say, now I'm going to share with you my personal opinion because it's relevant for this discussion. And you share that, maybe you invite some of their personal opinions, and then you take it back out to professional. So I think if you've embedded the context professionally, you provide the relevance for why you're going to share a little bit of that private opinion, then you're going to probably be okay. Don't feel the need to do this. Don't feel the need to share anything that you don't want to share. But if you want to share that opinion, I think setting it up professionally first and then sharing only what you're comfortable with and showing the relevance for why you did so would probably be the safest bet. All right. Next question asks you professional boundaries. As I am with my students for several years during the degree programs, I get to know them well, and they often ask me for letters of recommendations to apply for jobs or graduate schools. What suggestions do you have if there's a student for whom you cannot write a good letter of recommendation, as you truly believe they're not prepared for the job, graduate program, or if they were an absolute pain to teach you during the time with them? Easy answer here, decline. You should only, in my opinion, accept the offer to write a letter of recommendation if you can honestly support the student. I think if you accept that and then write bad things about the student, that's not a good thing. But maybe say, thank you so much for asking me. Is there anyone else you can ask? Because I'm afraid that I can't say the kinds of things that you would need to help you be competitive for a graduate program. That's probably where I would go. And sometimes if they say, no, I really want you to say, well, okay, well, this is what I'm going to say in the letter. So I'm going to say that you mostly attended class. I'm going to say that you generally did well in assignments, and that's where I'm going to end it. Are you okay with that letter? And they might say, okay, I'm fine with that as my letter. Then that's the letter that I would write. But I would never write something kind of negative. But I would also let the student that I'm not going to say very positive things, but I would first decline. Where students kind of push back on this is sometimes they need 3 or 4 letters at a university that has 19,000 undergraduate students, and they might not have a lot of people that they can ask. For instance, I know that I just agreed to write a letter of support for a student. They emailed me yesterday and said, hey, I need this letter for this thing. Can you support me? You're the only professor I know. I had to look them up on the photo roster, and then I had to look up their grades. And I said, "Hey, I'm willing to say you're doing well in my class." And that's all I need. I can say that, but I can't say anything else about the student. So having that kind of conversation, I think, is going to be helpful. And in the long run, it's going to be helpful because if that student gets a negative letter from you, it's not doing them any good. All right. Last question we have, kind of a personal question. I answered this for the person in SpeedGrader as well, and I'm going to give the same answer to them out loud as I gave then. The question is, do you think I have what it takes to be a professor? And the reason that I'm choosing to do this as part of this more public answering of questions and not just privately is I'm willing to bet a couple of you maybe have this question. I think that imposter phenomenon is a real thing. And a lot of times we're like, I don't know if I have what this takes. And being a professor is a hard job. Being a college teacher is a hard job. And I honestly think that every single one of you in this class does have the potential to be an excellent college professor. I think that all of you have demonstrated an aptitude for learning. All of you have demonstrated really good work over the course of the semester. All of you have shown the ability to think really deep thoughts about teaching over the course of the semester. And all of you have shown what I would want in one of my teaching colleagues. So if any of you needs to have this conversation with me personally, and I can maybe uplift you a little bit, please let me know. But I am super, super grateful to have all of you in the class this semester. And I think if you want to be a college professor, again, not the easiest job in the world, if you want to be a college professor, I think you have what it takes. And with that, those are all of our questions for this week. Hopefully, you see now a way that you can potentially, hopefully, answer maybe in an engaging way. I tried to be engaging during this conversation, but you can see a way that you can use these as an opportunity for a touch point with your students and talking about their reflections. As I had mentioned before, if you want to write an email response to all of your students' questions, you can do that. But I think that these videos are a nice way to have a little bit of a human element in letting students use their voice and you responding to it. So with that, I'm going to close off and I will see you all on Thursday for the next set of our remote teaching demos. Have a great day.